Hey everyone, welcome to the shop. This is Bo. In this video, we're going to be building an extendable dining room table. I've got some plans, I've got some material, I've got some tools. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start by cutting down some of the sheet goods down to their kind of initial sizes. So let's get started. So as I'm cutting down the sheet goods, let's talk a little bit about the details of the table. First of all, it's gotta extend and be able to seat up to 10 people, and that's gonna put the table around 10 foot long. When it's not extended and all the leaves are removed, it's gonna be 86 inches long and 40 inches wide in both cases. One of the issues with the current table is when the table is fully extended, the legs are actually fixed, and so the very ends of the table get pretty flimsy, and if anyone leans on them, they have some give to them. And last year's, it's gonna be very dark in color. For me as a woodworker, I would like to use some new building methods to me or incorporate them into this project. A building method I think is very scalable. I'd like to integrate some veneer. And then last but not least, I would just like to screw up less. That'd be great. Oh, now it's probably the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. All right, so we are, everything's been rough cut all the sheets have been rough cut, and then actually everything's been ripped down to width now. Got lots of pieces of MDF laying around here, lots of MDF on the dust, lots of MDF dust on the floor, on myself and my hair, on top of my water and coffee back there. But now we have to cut everything to length. So for the tabletop, you can maybe assume what all these little strips are for, but this is going to make a very shallow torsion box, and that's primarily for weight reduction. I've cut all these to length. I'm going to gang them all up at the miter saw, chop a bunch of them at the same time. In order to make the torsion box itself, the longest piece is 41.5 inches long. The next one is 2 pieces of MDF shorter than that. Doesn't really matter the number. It's whatever 2 pieces of MDF are, so I'm going to use that against my stop block to cut then the next smaller size. And then the other sizes are just kind of not as reliant on the thickness of MDF. So yeah, we're going to cut these at the miter saw and make some more sawdust. Here we go. All right, so in the middle of making the torsion boxes for the tabletop, for the webbing pieces on the inside, I'm using half laps, and I wanted to talk just a moment about that, and then you'll see me do it on camera here. But what I am doing is I got my dado stack in the table saw, set up to cut the half lap, and it's not a super tight half lap. It's still good, it's still firm. It's just not real tight because I don't want to have to hammer it down and risk maybe breaking one of the MDF pieces. So the way I'm doing this is that got my miter gauge here, and I've got some gauge blocks cut. One is 3 3/4, which is the spacing of one of my in one of my directions, and then I have another gauge block that is a material thickness longer than my web spacing.
And how I'm doing this is I'm essentially, my first cut is using the gauge that is my web thickness, or my web spacing, excuse me. I'll set my stop block up to that. Actually, what I've been doing instead of that is actually been using this and been then bringing all these pieces in and bumping them all up against that straight edge, and then gang cutting the pieces. Well, I'm sorry, I had a clamp first, and then I gang cut those pieces. And then using my gauge that's a material thickness longer, I then put that there, bump my stop block up against that, and then increment the pieces over, cut the other one. For these longer pieces, I'll cut one side, flip it, cut the other side, and then increment it because they're symmetric. And so we're gonna finish cutting these half laps, and then I've got to cut some kind of corner reinforcement pieces for the torsion box. When I was doing my kind of dry run yesterday of some of these pieces in the perimeter, it was really hard to keep the corner together and square while putting in the field or the webbing. And it's important that the torsion box frame stays square, because my plywood is just going to be kind of laid on top and glued and then flush trimmed back to the frame itself, the torsion box frame. So I need that to stay square. And so I'm going to cut some blocks that go in the corners of all the torsion box that I can kind of self-align and keep everything square and together. So we're going to do that, and then maybe we'll glue up a torsion box. We'll see how it goes. Here we go. Well, the first set of torsion boxes are glued up, the small ones. I thought I'd start with the smaller and easier ones first. They went pretty well. I had a little bit of problem with one of them getting a couple edges lined up, but for the most part went pretty smoothly. The little station behind me here where I've got kind of a flat surface and then 90-degree stops to butt everything against worked pretty well. I'm going to use that again for the larger torsion boxes. But what I have to do is this little weight setup I have here is not going to work for the larger boxes. I don't have enough weights or enough sheet goods to kind of distribute the weight. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my vacuum bag out and vacuum bag those. And so what I need to do is I need to move that station over here to my table saw assembly table, and then set my vacuum bag up over there, since that's kind of where it's going to be when I do the veneering work anyway, so it just kind of works out that way. Works out well if I do it now. That is going to do it for this video. Stay tuned for the future videos in this build. Of course, next one's going to start with more torsion box making, moving on to some legs, and then we'll finally get into wrapping the torsion boxes in walnut and doing some veneer work. So thanks for watching. Have a good one.